The geopolitical landscape of the Middle East is a pressure cooker of tensions, and on this fateful night, the world teeters on the edge of an unprecedented crisis. Without warning, 3 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, the most formidable aircraft ever designed for modern warfare, ascend into the inky darkness from their classified base on Diego Garcia, a remote U.S. military installation strategically located in the Indian Ocean. These aircraft are not just instruments of war, they are symbols of ultimate deterrence, a reminder that American military power can strike anywhere in the world with impunity. Each of these ghostly black triangles, crafted with cutting-edge stealth technology, is worth over $2 billion. They are virtually undetectable by radar, slipping through enemy defenses like phantoms in the night. Capable of carrying conventional or nuclear payloads, the B-2s are designed to dismantle fortified targets with precision strikes, ensuring that their presence alone is enough to send tremors through military high commands worldwide. Intelligence agencies in capitals across the globe are caught off guard. The sudden and unexpected deployment of these bombers triggers a cascade of emergency meetings, encrypted communications, and hurried assessments in war rooms from Washington to Moscow, Beijing, and Tehran. In Iran, a nation already on high alert due to recent escalations in the Persian Gulf, alarms wail across military installations. Air defense operators scramble to their stations, scanning the sky for a sign of the invisible specters that may already be closing in. Tensions between the United States and Iran have been simmering for weeks, fueled by a series of provocations: naval confrontations in the Strait of Hormuz, cyber attacks crippling strategic infrastructure, and the shadowy assassinations of key military and intelligence figures. In response, Iran has mobilized its ballistic missile forces, threatened to close vital oil shipping lanes, and intensified its regional proxy campaigns, bringing the situation dangerously close to open warfare. But tonight, something is different. The U.S. has never before deployed its stealth bombers in such a manner, without prior warning, without the usual diplomatic overtures, and without any attempt at de-escalation. This is not a show of force. This is a mission. The supreme leader of Iran, along with his top military advisors, watches intently from an underground command center deep beneath the mountains of Tehran. Satellite intelligence, radar sweeps, and electronic warfare units desperately attempt to pinpoint the incoming threat. The dilemma is agonizing. Should they preemptively launch defensive measures, possibly triggering an all-out war, or wait to see if the bombers will change course before reaching Iranian airspace? The world holds its breath as the bombers maintain radio silence, cutting across the darkness at high altitude. U.S. officials remain tight-lipped, neither confirming nor denying the nature of the operation. Speculation runs rampant. Are the bombers heading to Iran, or is this a diversion for a more covert operation elsewhere? Could this be the opening salvo of a full-scale air campaign, or merely a strategic maneuver to coerce Iran into submission? Across the Middle East, military assets are mobilized. The Israeli Air Force scrambles its F-35 stealth fighters, prepared for any escalation that might spill over into their territory. In Saudi Arabia, Patriot missile batteries are placed on high alert, ready to intercept any retaliatory strike from Iran. Russia, a key ally of Tehran, begins tracking the situation with its powerful S-400 air defense radar systems, while China, ever watchful of U.S. military actions, dispatches reconnaissance satellites to monitor developments. At the Pentagon, a war council convenes in the Situation Room. The president, alongside senior military officials and intelligence chiefs, evaluates real-time data streaming in from surveillance drones, satellites, and AWACS reconnaissance aircraft shadowing the operation. The stakes could not be higher. A miscalculation, a single missile fired too soon, or an accidental engagement could ignite a chain reaction that spirals into full-scale conflict. As the bombers press forward, their ultimate destination remains uncertain. Global markets plummet as oil prices skyrocket, investors fearing that an all-out war in the Middle East could send the world economy into turmoil. News outlets scramble to interpret the significance of the deployment, while social media platforms explode with speculation, conspiracy theories, and unverified reports of military movements. Then, a moment of decision arrives. Iranian air defenses detect what appears to be incoming aircraft breaching their airspace. Surface-to-air missile batteries, some of them Russian-made S-300 systems, are locked onto potential targets, waiting for the command to fire. Communications between Tehran and Washington are non-existent. There is no diplomatic back-channel active to defuse the crisis. Suddenly, a series of explosions light up the night sky, but they are not in Iran. Satellite images reveal targeted airstrikes on military facilities in Syria, where Iranian-backed militias have been entrenched for years. The B-2s have struck a network of underground weapons depots and command centers used by Iran's Quds Force and Hezbollah operatives. The precision strikes are devastating, eliminating key assets without any immediate indication of Iranian casualties. The world collectively exhales, but the crisis is far from over. Iran must decide whether to retaliate directly against U.S. forces in the region or to absorb the strike as a strategic loss. As dawn breaks, the bombers vanish into the horizon, their mission accomplished. In their wake, the fragile balance of power in the Middle East has been further shaken. The United States has made its statement clear. It will act when and where it chooses, and no enemy is beyond its reach. For now, the world remains on edge. Diplomats scramble to broker a fragile peace, while military planners prepare for the possibility of further escalation. The echoes of this night will reverberate through global politics for years to come, reminding the world that, in the age of modern warfare, silence and shadows are often more powerful than the loudest declarations of war. In Tehran, panic spreads like wildfire. The supreme leader convenes an emergency meeting with top military commanders deep within the fortified walls of a classified underground bunker. The room hums with tension as intelligence officers present satellite images and intercepted communications, painting a grim picture of the situation unfolding. The arrival of 3 U.S. B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, known for their ability to evade radar and deliver precision strikes, has thrown the Iranian leadership into crisis mode. Rumors swirl through the ranks of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, that American operatives have already infiltrated the country, marking high-value targets for an imminent decapitation strike. Special units are placed on high alert, and a nationwide security sweep begins, searching for any signs of espionage. Suspected informants are rounded up, and telecommunications networks are closely monitored for unusual activity. Within hours, dozens of arrests are made, but whether the suspects are truly American spies or unfortunate scapegoats remains uncertain. Iranian state television broadcasts a chilling warning. Any aggression will be met with fire and fury. The enemies of the Islamic Republic will face unprecedented retaliation. The rhetoric is fierce, and the streets of Tehran, normally bustling with life, now host military convoys transporting anti-aircraft weaponry and mobile radar stations to undisclosed locations. The government imposes a media blackout on all reports of the crisis, leaving citizens to speculate wildly. Whispers of impending war circulate in markets and cafes, fueling an atmosphere of paranoia and uncertainty. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in Washington, D.C., the National Security Council gathers in the Situation Room beneath the White House. Intelligence reports indicate unusual activity at Iran's underground nuclear facilities, suggesting the possibility that Iran is either moving its most sensitive materials to hardened locations or preparing to launch a preemptive strike. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff outlines possible scenarios. Is Iran bracing for an inevitable attack, or is it positioning itself to strike first? Satellite imagery and signals intelligence confirm that missile batteries are being repositioned near major Iranian cities and strategic sites. The elite Quds Force, Iran's unconventional warfare unit, is reported to have been activated for possible asymmetrical retaliation, including cyber attacks, proxy strikes, and covert operations against American assets in the region. Oil markets react instantly, with crude prices skyrocketing amid fears of supply chain disruptions in the Strait of Hormuz, through which nearly a third of the world's seaborne oil passes. Regional players brace for impact. Israel, a key U.S. ally and Iran's longtime adversary, places its military on high alert, deploying Iron Dome and David's Sling missile defense systems to protect its cities from possible Iranian rocket barrages. Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states reinforce security around their oil infrastructure, wary of Iran's potential use of drone and missile strikes against key energy facilities, a strategy Iran had employed before against Saudi Aramco's refineries. In the Mediterranean, the U.S. Sixth Fleet mobilizes additional destroyers equipped with Aegis missile defense systems, preparing for the possibility of retaliatory missile launches from Iran or its regional proxies, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen. Across the Arabian Peninsula, American bases in Qatar, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates receive reinforcements, while Patriot missile batteries are repositioned to defend critical locations. As the crisis deepens, global diplomatic efforts to de-escalate intensify. The United Nations calls for an Emergency Security Council session, but the proceedings quickly devolve into accusations and counter-accusations. Russia and China, both strategic partners of Iran, warn the U.S. against military action, arguing that an attack on Iran could trigger a wider regional war. France and Germany, key players in the now crumbling Iran nuclear deal, scrambled to mediate, sending high-ranking envoys to both Washington and Tehran in a desperate attempt to prevent an all-out conflict. Back in Tehran, the supreme leader remains defiant. In a rare televised speech, he declares, "The Islamic Republic will never bow to the enemies of the revolution. We have endured sanctions, blockades, and threats before. If war comes, we will meet it head-on." His words ignite nationalist fervor across the nation, with thousands pouring into the streets chanting, "Death to America, death to Israel." Yet behind the scenes, Iran's military commanders understand the gravity of the situation. War with the U.S. would be catastrophic, but surrender is not an option. With tensions at an all-time high, the world watches anxiously. The skies over the Middle East remain eerily quiet, but the threat of war looms like a storm on the horizon. The question remains, will diplomacy prevail, or is the region on the brink of a devastating conflict that could reshape the global order? Behind the scenes, a high-stakes game of deception unfolds, with intelligence agencies, military strategists, and world leaders all working under immense pressure. The CIA, monitoring encrypted transmissions across multiple regions, intercepts a series of coded messages exchanged between Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, commanders and their regional proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria. The content of these messages is deeply alarming. Deciphered fragments indicate that a coordinated multi-front attack against U.S. military installations in the Middle East could be just hours away. However, a lingering uncertainty haunts American analysts. Is this genuine operational intelligence, or is Iran luring the U.S. into a preemptive strike, a move that would justify a broader regional war? At Langley, CIA Director William Fraser convenes an emergency meeting with National Security Advisor Emily Carter, DIA analysts, and cyber intelligence officers. The room is tense, illuminated only by the glow of multiple monitors streaming real-time satellite imagery and intercepted communications. The consensus is divided. One camp warns that the intercepted chatter suggests an impending offensive against American bases in Iraq, Bahrain, and the UAE, while others argue that Iran is baiting the U.S., hoping to provoke an attack that would rally support for the regime and provide a pretext to unleash Hezbollah's vast arsenal of rockets on Israel. The balance of power in the region teeters on a knife's edge. At the Pentagon, top generals and intelligence chiefs engage in a classified wargaming session. Every scenario presents staggering risks. A limited strike on Iranian missile sites could neutralize the immediate threat, but it might also trigger asymmetric retaliation, cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, terrorist operations against Western targets, or a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, sending global oil prices soaring. On the other hand, hesitation or inaction might embolden Tehran, allowing it to launch first and shift the global narrative, painting the U.S. as vulnerable and indecisive. Defense Secretary Mark Ellis, his face lined with concern, turns to General David Larkin, head of U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM. "Can we afford to wait?" he asks. Larkin's response is grim. "If we do, we may not have the luxury of choosing the battlefield." Meanwhile, leaks from inside the White House suggest President Biden has already signed off on a limited surgical strike, a move intended to send an unequivocal message without igniting full-scale war. But in the corridors of power, limited is a dangerously fluid concept. One miscalculation, one unexpected retaliation, and the situation could spiral beyond anyone's control. The National Security Council debates the next step. The President's Chief of Staff, Sarah Whitman, raises a sobering point. "We hit them, and they retaliate against Israel. Then what? Are we ready for that escalation?" No clear answer follows. In Tehran, panic spreads as reports of increased American aerial activity circulate. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei holds an emergency meeting with top military officials, including IRGC General Esmail Ghani. The atmosphere is electric with tension. Rumors swirl that American operatives have already infiltrated the country, marking strategic targets for an imminent decapitation strike. Iranian state television broadcasts a chilling warning: any aggression will be met with fire and fury. Across the city, air raid sirens wail in preparation drills, and anti-aircraft batteries are repositioned near critical infrastructure. U.S. military satellites detect unusual movements at Iran's underground nuclear facilities in Natanz and Fordo. Analysts notice missile batteries and mobile launchers being repositioned, and there is evidence of advanced radar jamming systems being deployed. The question dominating Washington is clear. Is Iran preparing to strike first, or is it merely bracing for the inevitable? Adding to the chaos, Hezbollah forces in Lebanon are placed on high alert. Surveillance drones capture footage of militant convoys moving toward the Israeli border. Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency, intercepts orders directing sleeper cells in Europe and South America to be ready for activation. Israeli Prime Minister Eli Cohen warns that if Iran attacks, Tel Aviv will respond with overwhelming force. The Israeli Air Force is put on standby for potential preemptive strikes on Hezbollah positions in Lebanon and Iranian-backed militia camps in Syria. As diplomatic backchannels attempt to de-escalate the crisis, a new wave of cyber attacks disrupts power grids and financial institutions in both the U.S. and Iran. American cybersecurity experts suspect Iranian hackers are behind the outages, while Tehran accuses Washington of launching digital warfare in retaliation. The cyber battlefield becomes an invisible yet highly destructive front in the unfolding conflict. The Pentagon remains tight-lipped, issuing only a carefully worded statement emphasizing America's commitment to regional stability and the protection of its allies. But behind closed doors, a grim reality is setting in. The window for diplomacy is shrinking. The question remains, will this remain a limited exchange of strikes, or are the world's superpowers about to be dragged into a catastrophic war? As the three B-2 Spirit stealth bombers soar over the Persian Gulf, their black silhouettes cutting through the night sky like phantoms of war, the world holds its breath. The military assets of the United States, precision-calibrated instruments of destruction, are now locked in position. The question is not whether they will strike, but when, and what consequences their payload will unleash upon an already volatile region. The immediate economic repercussions begin to ripple across the globe. Oil prices skyrocket to $150 a barrel in a matter of hours. The stock markets, rattled by the uncertainty of impending war, suffer a catastrophic nosedive, wiping out billions in capital. Social media is ablaze with panic, speculation, and unverified footage purportedly showing massive explosions near Isfahan, Iran's nuclear heartland. Some analysts claim the footage is real. Others argue it is an elaborate deepfake, a psychological weapon designed to provoke Tehran into action. The information war is in full swing, and truth itself is now a battleground. In Moscow, Vladimir Putin's inner circle holds an emergency session in the Kremlin's Situation Room. Russia has long been a backer of Tehran, supplying it with advanced weaponry and intelligence support. But with the specter of all-out war looming, the calculus has changed. Some advisors argue that Russia must stand by Iran, escalating its support as a show of defiance against Western imperialism. Others, more cautious, suggest letting Tehran fend for itself, seeing an opportunity to extract political and economic concessions from the West. The decision remains uncertain. Meanwhile, in Beijing, the Chinese Navy executes silent maneuvers in the South China Sea. Intelligence reports indicate that several Chinese warships, including guided missile destroyers, have repositioned themselves near critical shipping lanes, prepared to exploit the situation to Beijing's advantage. Officially, China calls for restraint, condemning American aggression while quietly ensuring that it can leverage the crisis for greater regional influence. In the Middle East, the storm clouds of war are fast approaching. In Tel Aviv and Haifa, Israeli civilians rush to stockpile food, fuel, and essential supplies. Emergency sirens blare intermittently as the Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, prepare for the inevitable retaliation. In Baghdad, panic grips the streets as people fear that their city will once again become a battleground for global powers. Then, the first shot is fired. A sudden barrage of Katyusha rockets rains down upon a U.S. military installation in Erbil, Iraq. Explosions light up the desert night as sirens wail and soldiers scramble for cover. The Pentagon issues a statement confirming casualties, though the full extent remains classified. Just minutes later, Israeli F-35 fighter jets scream through the sky, conducting precision strikes on Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon. The conflict has begun, and the region is now on the brink of a cataclysmic war. In Tehran, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei appears on live television, his expression a mask of fury and resolve. "We will not allow our enemies to humiliate us," he declares. "Their aggression will be met with a response so fierce that it will shake the world to its core." His words echo across the region, sparking celebrations among Iranian loyalists and dread among those fearing the worst. Deep within the Pentagon's war room, military strategists assess the evolving situation with cold precision. The B-2 bombers remain unseen, their stealth capabilities rendering them virtually undetectable. Their flight path edges them ever closer to their undisclosed target, whether a military installation, a nuclear site, or even government infrastructure remains classified. At the United Nations, a frantic emergency session is called. Diplomats from around the world scramble to de-escalate the situation, proposing ceasefires and diplomatic resolutions. Yet the reality is stark. Decades of geopolitical tension, proxy conflicts, and unresolved hostilities are boiling over. The diplomatic channels may already be too late. As the seconds tick down, the world watches in dread. One wrong move, one misinterpreted signal, and the Middle East, and perhaps the world, could be plunged into darkness. The final question is not if the bombs will drop, but where and when. And when they do, will anyone be left to tell the story?